Alright, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck. Welcome back to another flight in Microsoft Flight Simulator here. And as you can probably see today, we are going to be doing a flight in the PMDG DC-6 aircraft. So, welcome aboard. We are currently parked in Miami. And what we're going to do today, if I can get the sim to do something for me here, is we're going to head from Miami. It's going to be a pretty short flight. We're going to head south from Miami and take a good right turn as we kind of fly down the Florida Keys and end up in Key West. It's not a particularly long flight today, but just thought I would take in some good scenery, and also did pick up a couple of these airports on sale recently, so I thought I'd check them out as well. So this is the Miami International Airport from LatinVFR. They did a fantastic job in the P3D version, and now we have moved on to Microsoft Flight Simulator. They released it. Quite a few months ago, but they recently had a sale at the end of August there, and I decided now is as good a time as any to pick it up. It's a great airport. It's a busy airport. It's a hub airport, so it's going to be great for my pilot's life career and all sorts of other flying I'm going to do. So we're going to do that, and I also have the FSDreamTeam KEYW as well for Microsoft Flight Simulator, so we're going to see how that scenery looks when we get there. So I figured it'd be a nice scenic voyage today down the coast of Florida. And before I forget here, I apologize. The stream went a little bit later, started a little later than I had originally expected. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first is, of course, I had a appointment this morning that I had to get to, and it ran a little later than had originally planned. And the second thing is that Microsoft, of course, released their World Update 5, I believe this is, for the sim today. So it's funny, I started the update process before I left the house, and when I got back to the house, the 27 extra gigs was finally just about done. So good thing I started when it did, or this stream would never have happened. And this is part of my never-ending rant about Microsoft Flight Simulator and Asobo and the update process they choose to use, which is not a very viable update process, forcing people to do the updates and not allowing them to use the software whatsoever until the update is complete. And these are not small updates, 27 gigabytes. You know, if you're on a low-speed connection, that could be the whole bloody day just downloading this, when you only have perhaps one day off between work shifts or whatever, and you want to go out and do some flying and have a little bit of fun and enjoy your hobby, and you can't, because they are always requiring you to run the update. You cannot run Flight Simulator once an update has been issued. You can't run Microsoft Flight Simulator again until the update is done. And I get the idea of having everyone on a unified platform and everyone having the same version number, but it's a little bit over the top, a little bit draconian the way it's run right now. And again, it takes a lot of the enjoyment out of it, because you sit there waiting for things to download. Things often don't download properly on the first try, or it just takes forever. Like I said, it's a good thing I actually saw this morning that the update was out, or I wouldn't have hit download before I left for my appointment, and it wouldn't have been done, and we would have canceled the stream altogether, because it would still be downloading now, and it would still be going for another hour or so. And I don't have a low-speed connection either, but just the amount of data that they want you to download with each update sometimes is quite phenomenal. So a little frustrating sometimes, the update process. I hope that they come around and find a slightly smarter way to manage it. Yes, you can force updates and make sure people are on the same platform, but you got to give some leeway, some time, some delay. Don't force it on day one, because then the other thing too is the servers are all overloaded on day one, and we're all sitting here waiting for the servers with these incredibly slow downloads, because they're all overloaded, because every last person who has Microsoft Flight Simulator who wants to use it today has to download that update today. And that could be, easily tens of thousands of users trying to download it on the first day, if not, possibly even 100,000 users trying to download it on the first day. So very, very frustrating the way they handle the process right now, and it needs to be improved. Anyways, that's enough ranting about that. Now that I'm done my rant, I'll pop myself here on the video. Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. And yeah, we're gonna hop in. I've got about 2 hours to get this stream done, so we gotta hop in and get this thing going. It's not gonna be too long. If I check my sim brief really quickly down here today, we're looking at where did I put it? I had sim brief. There we go. Yeah, all sorts of other things happened today too as well. There was, of course, a nav data update. My vPilot crashed, and I had to reinstall that just now as well, because the configuration file crashed on that. So all sorts of things. It just was not a good morning for trying to stream. But Captain Zap, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the stream. I'm just having a quick look right here at my flight, and it's showing 54 minutes is all we should need to get to Key West. So we should be able to do this without too much effort today. I did also even have to download today an update to the to the DC-6 itself. PMDG released a very small update, but their update was very small. I think it was 17 files and 26 megabytes, not 27 gigabytes like Microsoft Flight Simulator's update. So that went quick and uneventfully. All right, just give me 1 second here. We're going to strap on the Track IR hat. And maybe one day I will learn to pause the Track IR before I try to put on the hat, so it doesn't flip over on its back when the sensor's initially trying to align itself there. But anyways, yeah, so let's get this flight going. It's not going to be a particularly long flight. We are going to do it today old school as well. So let me hop in the flight deck here. There we are. So right now I've got the GPS in there. We're getting rid of the GPS. Ditch the GPS, please. Alright, so let's go options, and we are going with the Bendix King radios. This is actually going to be fairly easy today. So we have got nothing but an old-fashioned VOR DME radios, Navcom radios, the old Bendix King. What are those? The 750s? Yeah, the 155s. That's what they are. Yeah, the 155s. And we're going to just navigate from Miami to Key West, just VOR to VOR, which is going to be pretty simple, actually. As I showed you here, it's basically one airway. We take off from... If I just close that drawer so you can see a little more. We take off from Miami. We intercept Victor 3 southbound here. This is showing high en route. It should show low en route. We intercept Victor 3 outbound from the Dolphin VOR. We fly that all the way until we hit the 082 radial from Key West, and then we make a hard right turn and track the 082 radial all the way into Key West. That is Victor 3. It's going to be pretty easy, actually, compared to the last one where it was quite a lot of very short segment airways when I flew up the coast of California. So this one's going to be a lot easier to fly the VOR to VOR, but I'm enjoying this challenge of not using the GPS. I am a child of the magenta line. I was born into the age of GPS. I wasn't born in the age of GPS, but the age of GPS certainly evolved while I was learning about aviation. So I'm very much familiar with the idea of GPS and following the magenta line, and the idea of still being able to track VOR to VOR, DME to DME, and be able to find our way from place to place using just those simple tools. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy demonstrating that it can still be done, that you don't have to have an FMS to get around from place to place and fly an airliner, and if the FMS was to fail, you could still make it places. Anyways, that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to get in. Unfortunately, I'm still I still feel very much a fish out of water in the DC-6. I'm still getting used to it here. Let me just check that my controls are all working. Nope, that's not right. That's not supposed to move that control. So these are working, but these ones are not. So stand by 1 second and I'll fix that. And I also just did that as well, or I thought I did, but apparently I did not. So give me 1 moment. Nope, not that one. Sorry. That one. Okay, there we go, guys. Sorry about that delay. I had everything set up. Honestly, I did. I did the DC-6 flight just this past week, and must have been something in the update that corrupted the throttle quadrant profile. So I ended up having to reset all the axes. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 all correct, but something must have reset, because it honestly worked earlier this week, and now of course the update runs and it stops working, which is just par for the course as far as Asobo and their updates is concerned. So here we go with the before start checklist. So the automatic flight engineer is going to do it for us. He's going to pull up the stairs. He's going to close the door. At some point, he's going to close the door, I think.
Voice recorder.
And I hope that's not too quiet.
Oil coolers and cow flaps.
That honestly sounds fairly quiet to me, so I'm going to crank that up a little bit there.
Fuel and fluids. Checked. Pressurization. Set. Manifold and duct pressure. Checked. Radios. Checked. Doors and hatches.
Well, there he goes. Now he's closing the door. I was going to say, does he close the door? There he goes. He closed the door. Okay, good.
Closed.
Thinking about it? Yep, there he goes.
Door warning lights. Out.
I don't know where the door warning lights are.
Removed. 3 on board. Seat belts and pedals. Adjusted. Throttles.
I should actually check and make sure they...
Set to idle. Propellers.
Flap lever at least
Forward
works.
at 3. Before start checks complete. Start
Alright.
engines.
Very good. So we're ready to start engines. I'm a little bit suspicious just of some of the controls because of that one control profile reset. I think everything else is going to work for us. Hopefully everything works for us. If it doesn't, then, well, we'll have to just make do as best we can. Alright, so we're going to start up the DC-3 here. So we always start with engine number 3. So let's turn the magnetos on. Let's get the mixture up on number 3. Let's see here. He's already got the fuel pump on, and he's got the start selector in the number 3 position. Let's just check the number 3 fuel pressure over here. It is picking up some pressure, so the pump's working. There is fuel coming out of the system. And actually, before we even do that, and I'm not even thinking here, I'm feeling a little rushed here, but let's get this load manager going before we even try to actually take off here. So let me just pause that for a second there and pull up my sim brief. We do have a few people that we want to take with us here. 67 happy people. So we're going to go... And we'll bring some baggage with them as well. We'll bring some baggage with them. We're going to take the fuel load down a fair bit because we don't need that much fuel to get to Key West. We only need about 8,000 pounds. We don't need 16,000 pounds. So let's go ahead and... Can I just type in here? Alright, it moves every time you load the fuel too. Alright, I can't type in here, but what I can do is I can just put in, just roll it up, 7,000, it's filling all just the main tank, so we need 73, so I'm going to bring it up to like 9,000 pounds of fuel, which is still plenty, and even as we keep putting fuel in the airplane, you can see it's kind of just sinking a little bit, and the airplane's flexing a little bit beneath us. So we got 2250 in each main tank, which is 9,000 pounds. It should be enough to get us to Key West and all the way back to Miami as an alternate if we needed to. This still puts our empty weight at 61,000 and our gross weight of 83,000. So we are not even at the point where we need a wet takeoff. So, all right. So that should be good there. Get this back up here. All right. So now we're ready to start engines now that we've actually loaded everything correctly. So we go ahead and hit the starter. You can hear it turning, and he's going to start counting out the blades.
6.
You want to see it pull through 4 times, which is 12 blades.
12.
And then you can hit boost and prime, and that should get the engine turning. And you can see down here, of course, the RPM came up to 1,000 RPM. We've got some manifold pressure in the number 3 system. And the other thing, of course, you want to check right away in any engine, especially piston engine, is that the oil is pumping. So the oil pressure is coming up. It is into the green arc there, and the oil temperature is going to start warming up, as well as the cylinder head temperature is going to start warming up pretty quickly. So now that that's working successfully, we're going to prepare to start the number 4 pump, the number 4 engine, by turning off the number 3 pump, turning on the number 4 pump. And we verify again that the number 3 fuel pressure is still holding just with the engine pump now, without the electric pump, and we do have pressure on the number 4 system. So now we can get that one configured to start here, and let's see if I do. There we go. That gets me a little bit better perspective on number 4. No, that's not what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Again, mags on. Starter selector to number 4. We've got the fuel pump on. Let's go ahead and do it.
3. 6. 9. 12.
Boost and prime. You can hear it and you can see it. We definitely have about 1,000 RPM going there. Oil pressure is up. Fuel pressure is holding. Oil temperature is going to start coming up right now. And I can see that as we've been sitting here, the number 3, of course, has accelerated as the oil has warmed up a little bit. So let's back that off to 1,000 RPM, give or take. And you're going to see number 4 as the oil warms up a little bit, and as the aircraft starts circulating that warm oil, it's also going to get up to about 1,000, or it's going to get up to about 1,400 RPM. So let's bring it back to 1,000 RPM, which is a nice idle. And get ready to start the number 2 engine. Number 2 mags on. And you know what I didn't do actually? Sorry, my bad. I didn't turn that off and turn this on. So fuel pump number 2 is on, fuel pump number 4 is off, and the fuel pressure is holding. We've got the selector to number 2. We've got the mags on number 2. We're ready. Clear on 2. Starting 2.
3.
If I lean out enough, you can just see the blade turning there.
9. 12.
Getting a pretty good set of starts on this one. Not too much effort here. There we go, number 2, looking good. Alright, we've got oil pressure on number 2. We've got oil temperature starting to come up. And cylinder head temperature starting to come up. We can go ahead and get ready to start that last engine, the number 1 engine. So we got the fuel pumps off and on. So fuel pump number 2 is off, still holding with the engine pump, and number 2 is on. And we can go ahead and get the mixture up there. Get the magnetos on. And starter is over to number 1, and here we go. Clear on 1, starting 1.
3, 6,
6,
9,
9, and
12.
And I should be ready to push this as soon as we get to 12, but anyways, give it a couple seconds, hopefully. Oh, I may have waited too long there. Does not look like it wants to get fuel flowing here. And sometimes you get this with piston engines, or especially radial engines, they just don't want to start. So there goes the starter, it kicked out automatically after about 30 seconds. And that one did not want to start for some reason. So let's just verify that we've done everything correctly here. We do have fuel pressure flowing to number 1. We do have the mixture at auto rich on number 1. We do have the ignition system on number 1. We've got the starter, which we don't work because it turned it, and we do have that fuel pump on. So let's try it one more time, shall we? Clear on 1. Starting 1.
3, 6, 9, 12.
Come on, baby. You can do it. Nope, that number 1 does not want to start. Get that number 2 back a little bit there. She really does not want to start. She's being a bit of a pesky bugger. Alright, we'll take a boost the prime off again. And number 1. Let's try it one more time.
3, 6, 9, 12.
There we go. It's just because I'm taking a little bit too long to get the boost and prime in there. Alright, so even now the engines are not quite synced here because as they keep on warming up, they start spinning easier and easier. The oil gets smoother and slicker and slipperier, and they all start to spin a little faster. So there's number 1 is going to start accelerating there. So we do have oil pressure on all 4 engines. It is just a little bit on the low side, which is normal when you have an engine idling. What we can do is we can also just take off the number 1 fuel pump and turn off the number 1 turn off the start selector. We should still see fuel pressure hold on number 1. Everything looks good. We're green. We just have the amber light here because oil pressures are a little bit low at idle, but that's to be expected. So I think we're good to go. So we can go ahead and get that after start checklist rolling.
Start selected boost pumps. Off and off. Battery switch. Plane entry. Generators and inverters. Checked and on. Emergency lights. Armed. Ground power. Removed. Off to start checks complete.
Alright, and we're ready to start taxiing. So before we do anything else, I'm just going to get some stuff going in here. I'm going to get a squawk code of 2000. We don't have any ATC today on VATSIM. We are, as always, flying live on VATSIM, but we don't have any ATC on VATSIM. So we've got 1200. We've got 22.8 for Unicom. I saw a plane taking off there while we were starting the video, so I definitely want to make sure that we are on Unicom here. And I should also just make sure that we do have COM 1 selected for transmission and receiving.
Traffic at Giant 5218, taxiing at 27 via Sierra cross runway.
And there's some good validation.
Hold short runway 12.
Alright, the other thing we need to do, of course, is set up our navigation. So we're going to fly the Dolphin VOR outbound from Miami. So we just need a frequency for the Dolphin VOR, which is 113.9. And we do have 13.9 set up in the backup on number 1 and number 2, which is great. So now we've got it on number 1. We should get a DME reading of 3.2 nautical miles, which makes sense. And the other thing we're going to need, of course, is an outbound course to intercept, and that is going to be the 195 radial outbound. So let's go ahead and set this on our OBS here. 195 all the way around, pretty much. We're not going to go north, we're going to go south. Okay. 190, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. That looks about right. So once we get airborne, we can intercept that radial outbound. The other thing I need, of course, just looking at my other screen here real quick, is a weather check. So Miami, we're looking at the winds 200 at 8, 10 miles. It's Cav okay, basically. 33 degrees. Ooh, it's warm out there. 2997 on the meter. And the wind's 200 at 8, so we are going to depart westbound. So let's get 2997 on the meter first of all, if we don't already. It's already set itself automatically when I started up the airplane, which is fine. Just verify it there. And we're going to depart west. So let's just have a quick little look-see here at Miami charts. So I'm not going to taxi down to the south side, so we're probably going to depart up here on the north side. Because we are parked right now up here at the FBO. So we're going to taxi to depart, I'm going to just depart runway 26 right. That should be fine. 8,600 feet long. And it's a fairly straightforward taxi. And SIDS, I'm not going to be able to do any RNAV SIDS. So we're just going to see if I have a non-RNAV departure. Usually Miami 8 departure, usually like named after the airport. So
Miami traffic, Baron November Alpha Papa is right base, runway 26 right.
And there's some stuff going on VATSIM today. The volume sounds a little tiny bit loud to me, so just give me a second while I adjust it down a little bit, because that was the one thing I found, of course, like I said, because I had to reinstall all of VPilot, everything sort of came together, or everything sort of had to be reset. So radars required, DMEs required, file departure procedure in remarks section flight plan, special instructions on that made to use departure procedures with transition to fix, speed restrictions, turboprops, turbojets, that doesn't apply to us at all. We're going to fly whatever speed we can get to. And just for interest's sake, our cruise altitude today is 12,000, so we're going to climb up to 12,000 after departure. Since we don't have any ATC to restrict us, we're just going to basically take off west, turn, once we reach 1,000 feet, turn and make sure we intercept this outbound Victor 3 from Dolphin, intercept from the Dolphin VOR. And that's about all we're got to do, so sit tight, guys, and get ready for some fun. Here we go. Off, give it just a hint of juice here, and she'll even start rolling without even getting any juice on there. Get myself on here.
Miami traffic, Baron November Alpha Papa, short final 6 right, Miami.
Miami traffic, Delta 907 is a DC-6. We're at the signature apron. We're taxiing for departure, runway 26 right. What happened to my track IR, and why did it suddenly decide it wanted to go there? Alright. There we go. It's just being a little bit sluggish, I find, today. Maybe it's just me, but I find, like, right now looking around, it seems a little bit sluggish. And that's something that I wanted to actually talk about, too, and I was going to bring it up sooner or later. Apparently, there's a new feature that's been introduced with this latest update to Microsoft Flight Simulator called pre-caching, which is basically where what is it, outside view pre-caching or something to that effect. I forget exactly what it's called. I was reading about it this morning. But basically what happens is that normally the sim does not pre-cache a whole lot of what's behind you. So they don't...
Airport, traffic information, catch report, 3 Echo, on downwind side, 10,000 feet, north of the airport.
So they don't preload a lot of information about what's behind you, which makes sense in general, because generally you're looking forward when you're flying, and you don't need to see what's behind you, you don't need to load what's happening behind you. But the one thing is that when you do have something like track IR, or even just you go to an external view and you look around, there's at least a short hesitation, a short frame rate drop while it loads whatever's in that direction. So what pre-caching is going to do is it's going to turn up your ability to load stuff that is not in your field of view. So things that, like right now, the terminal building off to my right side, I really can't see too much of it, but if I turn up for the pre-caching to the maximum setting, it would load all that stuff around me anyway, so that when I quickly look this way, all that stuff will be loaded. And there's the Baron right there. I don't know if you guys saw him going by, but there he is. I imagine he's going to roll right into the FBO right behind us where we just left from. There's an American Airlines flight on final 08 left here.
Miami traffic, Baron.
Miami traffic, Giant 518, crossing
right
runway 30 at 0.
Correct, runway 26 right at 0.
Alright. everyone's just talking all over each other. It doesn't really help anybody. But yeah, so again, this is the LatinVFR Miami, and it's a pretty good looking scenery. One thing I did find about the LatinVFR Miami in the P3D world was it was a bit of a performance killer. Definitely one of, right up there with like the Fly Tampa Toronto in terms of really kind of rolling the P3D frame rates, which normally we're averaging 25 to 30, down sometimes into the single digits or the very low teens. And that was a problem with the, I find that was a problem with the LatinVFR Miami. It was a great scenery, it looked really good, but there was performance issues. It did kind of really penalize the performance. I don't find that with this MSFS version. It really looks quite good without a noticeable frame rate drop. The frame rate is still pretty slick there. It's about probably, I don't have it up in the corner right now, I usually do, but it looks like about 20 frames give or take to me, so it looks pretty good. But I definitely, I do have to say I like the detail level. They definitely have all the hangars out here. The terminal building over there, and just a general effect. Of course, we've got grass and all sorts of good stuff. It looks pretty good, and they did apparently do quite a bit of. This was one of the problems I think with the LatinVFR Miami and Pre-3D was that not only did they cover the Miami airport, but they also covered a large portion of downtown Miami, and I think that was part of their problem. Was that they had covered such a large area with such a good level of scenery that, of course, it penalized any system that wasn't super souped up. I think they've done the same thing here, where that's downtown scenery in the distance is part of this scenery package here in Miami, but it feels like Microsoft Flight Simulator does a better job of compromising and not, even when there is a fairly intensive airport, not losing the quality. Alright, so I'm going to just have a quick look here at, this is my Sim Toolkit Pro. We're going to have a quick look at the live map because I just want to see if I can figure out if that American Airlines that called. He called on final about 6 minutes ago, so I don't know if he's landed yet or not. I honestly can't tell. I don't see him on VATSIM at all anymore, so I'm going to guess he's landed already. This is us. This is the plane that just taxied in. This looks good, so I think he is down. So we are going to go ahead and depart here. So let's go ahead and do the before takeoff checklist, buddy.
Boost pumps. Boost pumps on low. Fuel selector and crossfeed. Main tanks and crossfeed off. Autopilot and carb heat. Off and cold. Hydraulic system. Down, forward, pressure and quantity checked. Okay. Flaps 20.
Miami traffic, Delta 907 is taking position, runway 26 right for departure.
20. Windows and turbine.
Miami traffic, Giant 5218, heavy, holding short 27 shortly, departure.
Closed and on.
Immediate departure.
Controls. Gust lock released. Free.
And last call on Miami frequency, Delta 907.
On.
Are you ready to depart now? Because we're going to make a left turn out. We're probably better off to turn behind you.
Reach and lock.
Okay, Roger, what's your
Set.
position?
Transponder.
We're just taking position, runway 26 right, but we can hold position while you depart.
Okay, no, if you're, I haven't rolled on yet. So
Landing
go
lights.
ahead.
Okay, to DC-6, we're going to be in a left turn out off of runway 26 right. It's going to be a minute or so, but we'll call clear.
Okay, Roger, we'll copy.
Extended and on.
Roger. And I
Full
see that.
takeoff checks complete.
Miami International Airport traffic information. This is 43 Echo.
Alright, let's do the dry takeoff.
3 inches stabilized.
And I noticed that a part of the reset here of the control system is that now when I push my push to talk, it immediately wants it to look right for some reason.
Stabilized. Cal flaps. Cal flaps. Cal flaps set. Full power, please. Going full power. Full power set.
And here we go. Miami traffic, Delta 907 is rolling runway 26 right. It'll be a left turn out. It really doesn't help that the whole thing moves when I try to make a radio call.
What, 1-8 heavy, lighting up.
And I also didn't look for a takeoff speed today. I always forget this. I'm so used to having them pre-calculated for me. So generally around 100 knots in this aircraft. And if anything, we're a little on the lighter side. So there's 100 knots. Let's go ahead and just rotate her off the ground just ever so slightly. And it really does not need much. You don't want to pitch up like a jet to 10 degrees nose up. You want to keep just like 2 or 3 degrees nose up and just try and release a little bit. And let the aircraft accelerate.
Gear up. Gear selected up.
Let it accelerate to about 165 knots.
Gear up, lights up, pipes up. Flaps going up.
We're doing 140 right now. So because the other traffic's waiting for us, start the left turn here at 400 feet. Even though we haven't even reached our climb speed of 165 knots yet, but there's 165. We could pitch up a little further now. We could probably turn a little steeper. She's a little more squirrely than I'm used to. And I don't know what's going on with the track IR today either. She's got some reflections off something. What's going on here?
Climb power. Setting climb power.
I'm not used to this light of an aircraft. She actually really wants to climb today. She's accelerated to 190 knots without me even looking, and I don't know what is going on with this track IR here. It's going to drive me nuts. Miami traffic, Delta 907, airborne off runway 26 right, and we are now through the center line of 27.
Climb power set.
Miami International, just 43 Echo now on runway 26 left, 7 miles
After takeoff checks complete.
Alright, done the after takeoff checklist. And we've gone through the course there, so let's go ahead and start a left turn back to get to it. And I'm still actually hand flying for once, which is something I don't often do in this airplane because I'm often trying to sort of figure out and navigate and everything, but there we go. Now we're airborne out of Miami. What a beautiful, beautiful afternoon it is. Clear skies, almost clear skies, a few clouds, but nothing too much. And I'm still pitching up, trying to find a. I don't think my pitch trim is working. I think that's why I'm also having trouble here. Crying out loud. Oh, Microsoft! I hate you sometimes so much. I reset the entire profile, and none of my key presses, or none of my not my key presses, but my control column, anyways, axes or button presses are working correctly anymore. Okay, so there comes the loc there, so let's go ahead and turn back to a heading of 195 now and fly it outbound. Yeah, see, I can't even do this. I'm going to have to get this autopilot on here. Autopilot on. There we go. Autopilot on. And let's see if we can get this into localizer mode there. It is in nav mode, not in GPS mode, so that should work. And then we just got to pitch it up a bunch. But yeah, very frustrating, Microsoft. You reset my entire profile for my control column now, so I'm going to have to go in and play with that. I should have been more alert to that when I had to reset all my axes, but it reset the whole profile, which is just very, very frustrating. You know, why would you mess with the profile? You know, mess with the default profile if you want, but don't mess with my customized profile that I created for a certain aircraft that I don't need you messing with. Just very frustrating. Wow. Normally, the last couple times I've done flights in this aircraft, I've taken a lot more fuel, like easily another 50,000 pounds of fuel. What a difference that's making the climb performance here. Our takeoff weight, instead of being like close to 100,000, was instead we were less than 90. We were about 80, 88, I think it was. We're sitting at 82 right now. So what a difference that makes when you've got a much lighter aircraft. She's going to climb today. Trying to go target that 165 speed. That's why I was having trouble too. Like I couldn't trim, and when I press switches instead, the views go crazy, which is just like, honest to God, why would you reset the profile? Microsoft, I hate you so much sometimes. Alright, its speed is slowly coming back. Pitching up just a couple more degrees there. And let's figure out what it's doing. But there we go. There's the airplane. And I can't even... there we go. And the drone camera also stopped working for some reason. So thank you, Microsoft. Sobo. There goes Miami to the south. And we've got the green skies, green fields off to the south ahead of us there. Miami falling behind us there. Overall, pretty nice looking day too. And some great scenery, except for, of course, where like the rivers cut over the highway, which is just weird. And I can't see a bridge there. Or there. They've got the water all marked, but there's no bridges over any of the water. Is that new? I haven't flown Miami before, so has it always been like this scenery down here? Or is this something new where almost all the bridges are gone? Oh my, oh what's up? For a little while here while I do a couple of these external shots just for fun. For some reason my drone camera is not working. I can't use my drone controls anymore, which is great. Love it. Thank you. The only one that works is this external camera, which is not terrible, but like it's nice when you can do kind of the zooming a little easier than. Oh, good. And now they've put the zoom back to where. Why did you reset all the controls? Oh my god, Microsoft, I'm going to shoot you. So they've reset the zoom now, where even in the external views, the zoom is always on instead of... I had changed it to be push the mouse wheel in and turn, and that was what would zoom. But now it's now they've changed it. Now they've reverted it back to just the mouse wheel by itself, which is fine in the external view, but when you're inside the aircraft, and you're just moving the mouse wheel around to move a switch, and all of a sudden you flip off the switch, and the stupid camera zooms in and out all the time. It's very frustrating to deal with, so... Sobo, you've done a lot of changes on this update again that nobody wants. So now if I do this... Well, but in the flight deck it doesn't seem to do it, which is weird. Just in the external view. Okay, so maybe they haven't messed with that at least. Alright, anywho, we're tracking outbound 113.9. We're tracking outbound on the 195 radial. We've got it nicely centered there. It looks good. Climbing up through 6,500 for our cruise altitude of 12,000. Flight engineers got everything under control. Let's just check out our engines here. So we are producing about 190 BMEP, consistent across all the 4 engines. Fuel flow is consistent across both engines, more or less. Oil pressures are all in the green. Oil temperatures are in the green. Cylinder head temperatures are in the green. Everybody's looking happy and normal. So that's all looking good. I've just got to fix some of these controls here. I may just hold off until after we get to Key West. Hopefully I don't have to make too many more transmissions on my radio, because every time I do, it looks over there. How annoying. You know, you get your whole flight deck set up the way you like it, and then they go and change stuff on you. And it's always a bit of a risk when you do a stream right after an update, especially if you haven't done a practice flight, which in this case I didn't even know the update was dropping today, but I had pre-planned this stream, and now of course they've dropped the update and it's messed with all sorts of settings now. So it's very frustrating sometimes dealing with Asobo and their update process. They really need to improve upon that. Alright, let me just switch to my other view here real quick and see what I got going on here. Alright. Yeah. Alright, anyways. It's not going to be a long flight. It's going to be probably about 20 or 30 minutes. Let's actually have a quick look at the chart here while I'm just finishing the climb out here. And let's get off this page and onto Victor 3 here. So Victor 3, give us the total mileage here. Is it 50 miles in total? I think it's 50 miles in total here. It doesn't have any of these 50 miles to Emanate, and then another 10 miles to Twins, and then there's no distance here, so I don't even know what the distance is there. But anyways, we're looking at a little over 50 miles, about 65 miles, and then we've got to intercept this track to Victor 3, which is on 113.5. One thing we will know is we will have gone south past the Keys before we turn, so that'll kind of be a good visual indication to us. And, oh, I already forgot, I think that's the 13.5, did I say, for Key West? 13.5, yes, I see it over there. 13.5 for Key West. So we can also set our next frequency up so we're ready to tune it in. 113.5, 113.5, and there go the Florida Keys right there, and you can see them sort of starting out. We're gonna go past them and then hang a right to re-intercept. And so that's 13.5. We can even set 13.5 on number 2 just for us to look at, and then we've got to see, where's my number 2 here? There's my number 2 VOR. And what did I say the inbound course was going to be? More important than the distance is the inbound course itself, which is 262 or 082 radial. So when this one swings around at 262, that's when we know we're on course to make our turn off towards Key West. Here goes 10,000 feet, another 2,000 to go to hit our cruise altitude. Lights should already be off. I think we retract them after takeoff in this aircraft anyways, so that they're all off already. So just keep climbing and away we go. There goes Key West, and the Florida Everglades over there off our right side as well. And it's funny how quickly the contrast happens between the developed areas and the still, wilderness areas in South Florida. The coasts are insanely, intensely developed, and then you get inland and there's almost no development, and the whole central swath of the state is basically undeveloped. There's roads that crisscross it, but otherwise it's undeveloped. It takes a very long time to kind of get through that whole thing, but there's very there's no sort of barrier land or buffer land. It really goes from suburban areas usually just directly into wilderness swamp. No farm field buffer land or anything like that. It's just almost right to swamp in a lot of areas. But part of that is, I think, is because of the speed at which Florida develops and is continuing to develop. New developments are being put up quickly all the time. It's not even there's not even time for a buffer to be built, as it were. Alright, we're getting up there. He's cut the power pretty far up there. 12,000. Here we come. Scenery definitely looked good. It was a shame that the track IR was kind of all messing up on me. It was very frustrating to kind of figure that out. So, what are you doing? Probably if I do this as well, this is all the views out the aircraft. Left, right, up, down. Alright, that's almost 12,000. Let's just get it pitching over a little bit so it starts to level out. The level off is not so abrupt. This autopilot on here is fairly simplistic. Basically, it will hold a pitch altitude, or it will hold an altitude, but it won't even intercept. It will just hold the current altitude at whatever altitude you've got when you engage the altitude hold. There's not even a way to adjust it other than pitching the airplane up or down, flying to a new altitude, and holding that altitude. So there is the altitude, 12,000, altitude hold is on. So you kind of want to sort of help the level off, sort of reduce the climb rate as you approach that level off point. Nice smooth ride to the passengers. That's one goal every captain should always have, is to have a nice smooth ride. So smooth, passengers don't even acknowledge that there's pilots up there flying the airplane. Everyone's always ready to complain when something's not feeling right, when something's going wrong, but if you're doing your job well as a pilot, people should not even think of you. Alright, let's do the cruise checklist.
Setting cruise power. Power is set.
We're at 44.5 miles already from Dolphin, so we're getting there really quick. This airplane actually, she's quite a speedy little bird. She's definitely not a slowpoke. Not a jet by any means. We're going to cruise at about 300 or so knots, but I mean for the jet air, or for the piston era, that was a good speed. All right, so we said 262, so I'm going to go ahead and set that on the number 2 side here, if I can, and then that way we'll get a better sense. That's pretty much 262 right there, taking into account parallax error. So when that one centers and when this one's pointing at 262, we know that we have reached the turn point on Victor 3 and we're ready to consider already our inbound. And really at this point we have to start descent planning, because in this aircraft you need to start your descent planning early. You make one power reduction in the beginning of the descent and then you don't touch the power pretty much after that point. You keep it at one consistent power setting and you have to plan your descent accordingly to allow you to drift down at that power setting. One thing radial engines do not like people jockeying the power, playing with it back and forth, and that's what happens in a jet with the auto throttle system. It's constantly making tiny little adjustments forwards, backwards. The engines are accelerating and decelerating a little bit. A jet engine is a lot more forgiving of that sort of thing. A piston engine, especially a radial engine, is just made up of 1,000 moving parts. Between these 4 engines, there's 72 cylinders moving back and forth with valves opening and closing, moving back and forth thousands of times per minute. Valves opening and closing, sparks being generated at the correct moment, and all that sort of stuff. And it's very, the most stressful time for any engine is when there's a change in power setting, especially a big power change, and everything sort of has to adjust. The thermals have to adjust. All the different parts have to start moving at a different speed, and that's the highest stress to an engine usually is when you're changing power settings. So in a radial engine especially, we minimize the number of changes in power settings, and we'll do things to increase and decrease our descent rate by adding and taking away drag rather than changing a power setting. Anywho, I'm already going to start thinking about setup into Key West here. So first things first, we're going to have a look over here at the ATIS. So Key West, 190 at 7, 10 miles, fuel 2200, 31 degrees, 30 inches even on the meter. And let's just have a look at the... Oh, didn't load Key West for some reason there. Key West. There we go, open charts. And yeah, so 190 at 7. Yeah, it's going to be favoring 27 very slightly, which is the straight in arrival, which is quick and easy. We don't have anything except for RNAV approaches. Oh, we do have an NDB Alpha approach we can do. Given the visual conditions, we're just going to plan a visual straight in. So we probably want to be level about 20 miles before we hit Key West at about, I'll say even 15 miles at 2,000. In which case, and the VOR is pretty close in the field here. So we'll say 20 miles back from Key West VOR, we want to be level at 2,000. We're going to lose 1,000 feet per minute, so we need 10 minutes to descend, and we're moving at about 300, about 5 miles a minute. So we need 5 miles a minute. We need 10 minutes to descend. We need about we need about 50 miles to descend. So pretty much as we round the corner here, I think we're going to have to start a descent. Because I think that was about 50 miles there. And I could look it up in my nav log because the charts here are a little bit hard to sometimes read. So let's have a look in the nav log real quick here. And let's see here, do I have a distance to go? Remaining distance, there we go. So from the time we get to Drown, remaining distance is 92 miles actually. So we can go a little bit past Drown, and we'll be able to get the DME up here as well in a minute once we get the once we get turned to the other VOR, we can actually see it here. So we need 50 miles right now. Number 2 is showing 68.7 miles from Key West. And we're getting to that point where we are almost ready to make that turn there. Yeah, so it's starting to come in. So I think what we'll do is we'll switch to heading mode here, or to wings level mode I should say, and then we'll switch to 13.5 on the number 1 system, set the inbound course of 262, and start tracking it inbound. And yeah, pretty much there we are. So let's go ahead and just switch to the localizer mode, And it should start cranking us over there to track that inbound. There we go, nice. And now on the number 1 system, we have 67.8 miles to go. So about, yeah, pretty much 65 miles, because we want to be level 15, 20 miles early. And we're going to need about 50 miles for the descent. So there we go. So let's go ahead and get the descent going.
26 inches, please. Setting 26 inches.
I'm going to turn off the altitude hold. We're going to start to pitch down to hold about 1,000 feet per minute. 1,000 feet per minute is the target. So we're going to try and find a pitch that's going to hold that nicely.
Altimeters and flight instruments cross-checked. Seatbelt signs on. On. Engine blower is low. Low. Descent checks are complete.
And that's about 1,000 feet per minute. That's just a tiny bit more. Otherwise, looks pretty good. We're maintaining the same forward speed of 200 knots, but now with the reduced power setting, we're doing 1,000 foot per minute descent. And we'll just continue to follow the Florida Keys out westbound here and head into Key West. We'll just do a straight in landing to runway 27. We're not RNAV capable, and all they have is RNAV visuals, but it's VMC, so we'll just take that visual approach straight in to runway 26, or 27, excuse me. I wish that I could even get into the configuration menus without the sim pausing, because I would like to be able to make radio calls without having the thing constantly look around, but it's just not a possibility, unfortunately. So we're just going to have to keep on going here. But that was actually a really short flight, surprisingly short. I mean, I knew it was short, but we were basically in cruise for about 5 minutes there. Very different time for airline travel when this airplane was flying, though. Very different world that people lived in, and aviation was a very different place than it is right now. When you needed a flight engineer to baby those engines, because the engines were so much work to take care of that you needed one person whose sole job it was to take care of those engines. So there we go. We've got, for the descent, we've got 27 inches of manifold pressure, 2,300 RPM. Gives us a good solid 90 BMEP, which is a good kind of power setting for the descent. It keeps us it gives us a nice steady descent without shock cooling the engine, and it gives us the ability to level off and not lose all of our speed right away when we level off. We'll lose a bunch of it slowly. And that's the key, is you need to kind of be there early, because you're going to lose your airspeed very slowly when you start descending here, or when you start leveling off. Fortunately today she's a little bit lighter, so she won't have as much inertia. We might lose the speed a little bit faster, but I found that I've had a little bit of trouble with this aircraft just getting it to slow down, because the only way you can slow it down, you're not really supposed to be reducing the power and playing with the power levers. You're supposed to leave them where they are. Really, the only thing you can do is add drag. So you start throwing the gear and the flaps down, but you can't do the gear and the flaps until you get to 174. For the first couple notches until, 0 to 30, right? 0 to 30 is 174. So it's going to take us a little while to get from 215 knots back to 174. It's not going to slow down quickly. I would like to visit Key West, though. I think that'd be a fun place to visit. It's kind of an odd thing to drive across this never-ending bridge, pretty much, that just sort of leads out into the ocean across this small, thin chain of islands. And to certainly be there during any kind of inclement weather and see the ocean on either side, you know, I can imagine that would be very unnerving. I think when it's the weather is severe clear like this, though, what a beautiful place to hang out. All right, how are we doing distance-wise? 50 miles, 12.7. About 6,000 feet still here. And she's still slowly building up speed even now in the descent. We're up to almost 220 there on the indicated speed. Which, again, we can look here and it shows us grounding 247 knots towards. So we're actually not quite going as fast in descent as I had planned. So hopefully we should be able to level off a little bit early. Actually, my first time flying into Key West sim or otherwise, so kind of, I'm not unfamiliar with, I understand what it is, but yeah, like I am unfamiliar. Like we're going to have to really kind of keep our eyes open for what the various things are here. So there's kind of a couple of really big keys that kind of open up to the north here, and then Key West is kind of down here on one of the last, basically it's the last island in the chain more or less. So these might be the first couple of islands here, and then we'll have to just keep our eyes peeled to this. Because we're flying it without the GPS. We're not going to use the RNAV approach, we're not going to use the GPS, we are old school today. But it's kind of fun that way. That's really the challenge I like. But one of the reasons why I wanted to start flying this airplane was to kind of see what it was like to fly back in the day. Of course, the one thing you can't really simulate that particularly well is the kind of team effort you'd get in a cockpit with 3 people. You get your co-pilot there who's helping you out, and then you've got your flight engineer who's basically your engine computer, and basically his job is to keep those engines running, monitor all their parameters, and keep them moving at consistent power settings. So he's constantly, you don't even realize that he's constantly adjusting the power levers here, but while we're in descent climb, to keep the power setting the same, because in a normally aspirated engine, even in a turbocharged engine, as you go up, you know, the air pressure becomes less. It becomes you have to open the throttles more and more to get more air in to meet the same power setting, to get the same amount of air into the airplane, and vice versa on the descent. As we go through the descent and the air gets thicker, he's got to close the power levers to keep close the throttles to keep the amount of air entering the engine and generating power roughly the same. Alright, so we got 40 miles to Key West, 41 miles to Key West. We're just descending for 6,200 feet. What a pleasant day though for the stream. One of the challenges like we had this past week with some of the weather, the extreme weather that passed through the other night, that was definitely unpleasant to fly through, to say the least. Alright, so we got a bunch of keys kind of to the north, and then it sort of wants to switch back to the south, so it's probably around here, I think, is our destination. Got to sort of plan our altitude and our descent very carefully in this aircraft. Like the last 1 or 2 times I flew it, I did not plan my descent carefully and ended up overshooting the destination because I started descending too late, so. I hope the balance is okay on the audio as well in the stream there. Seems like it might be a little bit loud. I can talk over it. I might just turn it down just a little bit there. It was kind of quiet before I started the engines, and as soon as I started the engines, boy, did it get loud in here. And sometimes it's hard for me to judge. Like, you know, I can look at the volume meters, but it's hard for me to judge how well I'm actually speaking over these engines. Especially these engines have a nice, deep, grunty voice to them. It's quite powerful and dominating. Alright, we're descending through 4,500. The altimeter at Key West is supposed to be 30 inches, so there we go. I feel like it might almost be descending a little too soon. So I'm just back the pitch off just a little bit, slow the rate of descent just a little bit more. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Get myself out of there again because I always like to have the possibility of having external screenshots. That looks really good, but see, the bridge works here, but I imagine they had to really generate that bridge, the Key West bridge, because that's the long and obvious landmark when you're flying through the Florida Keys. You want to see that highway. I don't even honestly know what that highway is. If it's a state road, if it's an interstate. And some of those sections of the bridge are quite long. That has got to be a good, like, 5-mile long bridge. Not a place you want to be during a hurricane, that's for sure. There we go. Alright, it's enough time out of the flight deck. Back in, let's see what we're doing here. Alright, because there's no altitude selector, so I have to level the airplane off at the appropriate moment here. Alright, that's got to be Key West down there. We may have been a little early, because we still got 26 miles to go. That's okay. That gives us, actually, no, that's just about where we planned. We wanted to be level about 20 miles before the VOR, so we had time to lose that speed. So, no, actually, I think it's working out quite well. And is the VOR on the field, actually? Let's just have a quick look here. Or not the VOR, the ADF. Because I can always tune that up as well. There's the NDB. The NDB is just off the end of the runway, 332 is the fish hook NDB. So we can bring that up just to sort of have it handy. So 332. 332. There we go, 332 in ADF mode, and there it goes. There's the ADF. Chugging right along. Perfect. Alright, 2500. Start that level out. Just ease into it a little bit here. I may have done a little bit too much because that stopped the descent altogether, so let's just keep her going down a little bit here, but not too much. Okay, thanks, Captain Zap. Yeah, it's so hard for me to judge. I don't have my own voice playing in my head because I find that really distracting. I cannot deal with feedback from my own voice into my headset. I find myself hearing myself and echoing, and it sounds really weird. So I can never put that in there. I find it's very hard for me to deal with. But maybe I should at least periodically just check it and see if I can deal with it. It is sometimes very hard to tell without feedback how the balance is working. Alright, so we're going to level off at 2,000. And yeah, so the airport should be just over there somewhere. As we level off here, our speed's bleeding off, which is good. That's what we want to see. That hit precisely 2,000 and engage the altitude hold. There it is. There's altitude hold. That should help bleed off the speed now. We're looking for 174 to engage our first stage of flaps. Alright. Never been to Key West before, so help me find it. So we're pretty much almost parallel to it. And there's two airports. There's the Naval Air Station first. Just before Key West, and then there's Key West itself. So we got to make sure we don't land at the Naval Air Station, which this looks like it's going to be the Naval Air Station here, and the airport's going to be just on that very last one there, because that's got a little bit of a bigger shape. It kind of extends more northwards. So looking at the shape of this chart here, that's that island. That's the Naval Air Station. We don't want to land there. We want to land at Key West Airport, which is just beyond it. So there we go. So let's make sure we got it. So the speed's slowly bleeding off there. We're down through about 185. We only have to lose about 10 more knots now, and we can get flaps out. And really, that's the key, is getting that first notch of flaps out. That's what I found, and that's what I learned from watching the tutorial videos. Is once you get that first notch of flaps out, that's what really helps you get the speed under control. But it's a matter of being able to level off and let the speed drift back to that first one. So that's 180 knots. Got still 13 miles from the VOR. Yeah, this should work out okay. Fortunately, we're down to 2,000, so we don't have that much to lose. We can start our descent at about 8 miles final. 7-8 miles final, we should be able to start our descent. So there we go. So now we're down through about 177, and it just sort of creeps from here. It really does not. That's why you got to give yourself like a good 10 miles of level flight before you intercept the glide slope or whatever final descent you're doing. Alright, that's probably about 176. Come on, baby. You can do it. Just drifted very slowly down there, about 175. Yeah, this descent was just about perfectly timed. Because really, at the end of the day, it's the flaps. So let's do the in-range check.
Cooling turbine. Normal. Fuel booster pumps.
And that was like 174 knots. Let's go flaps. 10.
On low. Fuel tank selectors. Mains on. Crossfeed off.
I don't think he's got the hydraulic bypass on yet.
Down.
There we
No
go.
smoking signs. On.
20, and then we need 150.
In-range checks. Complete.
152 to go below the last one. So there's the naval air station, and then let's just have one more look whereabouts on this last island. Pretty close to the first part of the island there. So yeah, that's me. Autopilot off. We're gonna start going down now, and gear down. And let's go ahead and do the before landing check.
Flaps 20. Setting flaps 20.
In fact, let's set flaps 30.
20 flaps set. Mistress Ridge, please. Auto Ridge.
Right over the naval
Set.
air station. Where's this
Gear up
bloody
and down, please.
airport?
Gear up and down.
Is this it right here?
Gear down and locked. 3
That
lanes.
looks like. Or
Props.
are we lined up with it right there? Is that it right there? I honestly can't tell. Oh,
RPM set. Cal flaps.
no,
Plus 3 degrees.
it's got to be this over here
Cal
because
flaps
it's
set.
south of the station. Okay, so we lost our speed now. At least we're good.
ADI off.
We're down to about 130 knots.
Landing lights. Speed good. Extending lights.
And we're landing at
Lights
about
extended and on. Copy.
80
Call me cold. Set cold.
80,000, so we're looking for a full flat VREF of 101. Yeah, there it is. That's the airport there. Key West traffic, Delta 907 is turning final, runway 27. So we're looking for 101 knot VREFs. Let's go flaps 40. Cleared flaps 40. Oh, kind of overshooting the center line of the runway a little bit here, but the slope's looking pretty good. Go ahead, flaps 30. We're looking for 101 VREF, so we did overshoot a little bit there. Oops. Gaining some speed here on final, which is not good. We got full flap, we got flap 50, we got nothing else we can do except maybe reduce the power a little bit more, which is kind of a no-no, and it doesn't help that why is it shifting so much there. Now we lost too much power. I don't know what's going on with the track IR today. Okay, now we're actually not looking too bad. We're a tiny bit low, but we're also still a little fast, so we're losing the speed here. Why? Every time I like move, oh, you know what? The trim wheel, this is why I can't trim, because the trim wheel doesn't work, which doesn't help me at all. I very much am used to trim. I need trim. And when I can't have trim, then I'm constantly fighting with the controls here. So we're just a little bit slow here. Just over the trees. Why? Why track IR? Why? I have to check all the settings on my... And there's power to idle. Whoop, bounced a little bit. I don't know why track IR is going so nutty right now. There we go. We did make it even though track IR is absolutely insane for some reason. I did a flight last week and I had almost no problems, so I don't understand what is going on with this week. Well, I'm guessing it has to do mostly with the update, which always tends to screw things up on this sim. Alright. Welcome to Key West. We made it. And actually the descent for the most part worked out really well there. I was pretty impressed with that. Achievement unlocked, citizen stars. I don't even know what that achievement does. The descent planning actually worked out really well there, so I'm pretty happy with that. We were maybe a little tiny bit tight, a little tiny bit late losing speed, but it was pretty good. But then this track IR, I don't know why it wanted to jump around so much. I don't know if it's something that I'm doing with Microsoft Flight Simulator, or if it's TrackIR itself that's picking up some gleams from something else, and there's no sunlight coming in. Sometimes sunlight does that. If you get sunlight coming in and bouncing off your TrackIR, it does that, but there's no sunlight coming in, so I don't understand what's going on here. Alright, after landing flow. And a quick radio call. Key West traffic, Delta 907 is clear of runway 27, taxiing the apron. Or the ramp.
After landing checks complete.
Alright, he's got the after landing checks done, and we're there. So that wasn't too bad. I'm sorry, guys, for some of the wonky TrackIR going on there. I realized that probably did not make it any easier to see what was going on. It definitely made it harder to fly it. It seemed to happen close to the runway, though, so I wonder if it's somehow sim-related, if it's something when I'm trying to move the trim wheel, because the trim wheel doesn't work. That just moves me up and down for some reason. I'm just trying to figure out what button it could be pressing, or I just don't understand what it was doing there. Why TrackIR was suddenly getting all jumpy. I'm going to have to sort of play with it here. Come on, get your giant truck out of the way. He's very slowly moving out of the way. And I'm going to chew him up with a radial engine if he's not careful. Very tropical here. Who wants to go to the beach now? Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed just with the performance of the sim a little bit on that stream. Not as smooth as I like it, especially with the TrackIR doing whatever it's doing, and of course these buttons not being set up correctly because, of course, Sobo messed it up. Oh, there's a little bit of water out there. But definitely a nice airport for a visit, and we're going to have to probably do a return flight at some point. So maybe we'll stream a return flight, or maybe we'll head back up to Orlando. I believe they have a decent, a high-quality default airport there. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It definitely, flying this airplane has given me a bit of an appreciation for what it was like to fly back in the day. And if you really want to gain an appreciation for learning what it was like flying back in the day, there is an absolutely fantastic book. It is probably my favorite book of all time, and it's called Fate is the Hunter. And I'm even going to type that up, because if you are at all interested in aviation and you want to really kind of get a feel for what it was like back in the day, Fate is the Hunter by Ernest K. Gann is basically almost his memoir of what it was like flying for the Air Transport Command during World War II, flying for airlines before World War II and after World War II, and his adventures. And his descriptions are just absolutely so vivid that you can smell the oil from the engines, and you can feel the fear in some of the situations he ended up in. It's absolutely well told, and the wonderful thing about it too is that it's told from a perspective where it works whether you are whether you have a lot of technical knowledge about aviation or not. So he's done an excellent job. Can I get... I'm going to go park over there in front of the terminal. He's done an excellent job of telling the story of what it was like to fly in the World War II era, both before and after World War II, in transport-type aircraft, in the airline business, and flying for the military, for the Air Transport Command. He's told it in such a way that even if you don't understand a lot about aviation, you can still really appreciate what he's talking about. But then if you do understand aviation, if you do have some technical knowledge and background in aviation, you just appreciate it that much more, and you can really kind of sympathize. But you feel like as you read the book, you feel like you are just completely caught up there with him, sitting right next to him as he's doing all these things that's going on, all these adventures. So it really is a wonderful book to read. If you're at all interested in aviation, you really want to kind of read about what it was like in the golden age of aviation. Fate is the Hunter is probably one of the best books that you could ever read. As you can tell, I just can't stop talking about it. But it is one of my favorite books of all time to read, and I've reread it probably about 4 or 5 times because it's just nice to kind of go back and relive it. It's nice because the memoirs are very well structured in that the whole story of his career is kind of told through the chapters, but each chapter is a completely standalone story. And if you just pick it up and read just one chapter, you'll get you'll enjoy just the one chapter. Each chapter is a fully standalone story. You don't have to know and understand anything about what came before to enjoy. I'm just going to park right here, right in the way. You don't have to read and know what happened in the chapters before to enjoy each chapter. So each chapter stands alone well, but then overall it also tells a great story of his overall.
Cut entrance.
Can I do anything? No, not until the engines are off, I guess. So really, really a great book if you're at all interested in classic aviation. I've always loved reading it, but yeah, definitely flying the DC-6 has given me more of an appreciation for how difficult it was to fly and why you needed a 4-man crew back in the day to fly an aircraft like this. You know, a lot more manual work. There's no computers running the systems automatically. Everything in the aircraft, you're doing it yourself. So whether it's setting the power settings for takeoff and verifying that they are the correct power setting that you're supposed to have for takeoff, or managing the cooling of the engine with the cowl flaps, the fuel system, you know, switching tanks and transferring fuel, yeah, all those things. Nothing is really automated in this aircraft. You've got to do it all yourself. Navigation.
Complete, A-plane secured.
Perfect. Yeah, all, you know, running the aircraft systems, keeping the heaters running, the de-icing systems, everything. You've got to do it all. So let's go ahead and open up some doors here. Let's go open up the main cabin exit as well. We'll get the ground power unit on here. And we can put the engine oil pans in. Actually, I don't want to do that, whatever. That's what I want to do. Is I want to get the stairs, but that's it. That's there we go. We did it. We did what we set out to do, which was we did a flight from Miami down to Key West, and it turned out pretty well. A few glitches, thanks mostly to I think more than anything, thanks to Asobo's new update. But there we go. That's a nice shot right there. I might just zoom that out just a little bit, and that'll be my title card, I think, right there. If I can just sort of level the horizon nicely, there you go. That's a good title card right there. What a good looking scenery though. FSDreamTeam, that is a really nice looking terminal. I don't even know what's going on over here over the door, but I don't even know what that's supposed to be, honestly. I've never been to Key West. Oh my gosh, and look at this. There's even baggage going around on the baggage carousel. Haha. Isn't that hilarious? And that's just the kind of level of detail that you kind of expect from FSDreamTeam. Just little things like that. I honestly, I don't think I could have gone my whole life and never noticed that was there. But yeah, there you go. It looks really good. This is all of Key West, and it looks pretty darn good. I'm pretty impressed. Actually, you know what I should do before I do anything else is let me just take myself away, so that then I have the nice title card here. Because if I find myself in the shot, then I find I don't quite like it as much. So there we go. There we go. There's the nice title card right there. But yeah, so welcome to Key West. That's a really good scenery. I like it. It looks really good. And FSDreamTeam has really cut the prices of their scenery. They haven't cut the quality, but boy, they've cut the prices in the MSFS world. I think this is $10. So for $10, you really can't go wrong. It's a really nice looking scenery. It's a good kind of narrow body airliner airport, as well as a good GA airport to fly to, and a nice tropical destination. Tons of great scenery around here. So anyways, that's my stream for the day. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you learned something anyways. It was much shorter than usual. That's one thing I will say for sure. I usually tend to do them a little bit longer than this, but that ended up being a little shorter than usual, but that's okay. I still had tons of fun. Again, proving that you can still get these aircraft around the old-fashioned way, and this was really kind of worked out really well because it was about all I had the time for this week. But stay tuned. Hopefully next week we'll get some more streams in. We'll probably resume the next leg of a pilot's life when I get a little bit of time. I just have to actually find the time right now. Work schedule is a little bit hectic the next week or so, but we'll see what we can do. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, those of you that participated. And if you haven't already, of course, subscribe to the Twitch channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, so you know when the next videos come out. And and if you also haven't, pop yourself in the Discord. It's not particularly huge chats in there, but the one thing that is in there is I try to post a couple of days in advance when I will be streaming next. So for those of you that want to join, and I am still trying to set up a date for my newbie night for VATSIM. Most likely going to be done at Victoria Tower, CYYJ. I haven't picked the date yet 100%. I'm still looking at my schedule, trying to figure out what's going to work best. But sometime soon, this month, I will do a newbie night. And anybody who's unfamiliar with VATSIM, it will not be streamed. It's just going to be me being on a tower position where anybody who's unfamiliar with VATSIM or just uncomfortable with the idea of going on there and wants to have a first experience in a very low pressure, low key environment, I'm going to go on there. I'm just going to man a tower for 2 to 3 hours and just come do some circuits, get over that initial shock of getting into the VATSIM network, and have a little bit of and have a little bit of fun. Ask any questions you want. Very much just tend to be an educational experience for anyone who's new to VATSIM. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, subscribe to the Discord. You'll really get notified about changes that way. And otherwise, I will see you guys all real soon. Stay healthy and safe out there, and we'll see you guys all in the next stream.